Okay, I'm just waiting for it to connect on the LinkedIn side, then we'll start. Hello, David. How are you?
Oh, fantabulous. And I was going to ask you actually, am I the first returning person or no?
You are.
Oh,
You're the first person that's ever returned on my show. Yeah.
because we had such a good time last time. I'm begging. I hope Sandra will let me come back.
Oh no, for friends and for people that I like, you're always welcome back on my show.
That's right, folks. One first guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining again. This is David Gibbs. He's a fellow financial coach and a career coach.
Yeah.
And last time we talked a little more about finances, and it was really more about building a financial coaching practice while his wife was working, the normal 9 to 5, and he was home with the two young boys. So look for that episode if you want. But this conversation is going to be a little more focused on career because a lot of people in my audience, if you think about it, career is very linked to income, right? So when we're talking about finances and money, when people don't have this career part of their life, going for them, it's hard for them to focus on managing their money. And I also think career is so much more about just working. Working is just, it's tied to people's purpose and their passion. And when people aren't happy with what they do the majority of their day, it's hard to get them to focus on money and other things in their life, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just everything is connected. The reason I started leaning towards career is that I'm having these financial conversations, and then so often it's, oh, I hate my job. It's always a part of
Yeah.
it. And then we want to work on getting out of debt and all that. And we're talking about the reasons why. One of the big main things I always talk about is, what's your reason why for doing this? And it's always, I want to not have to go to this job because I have to pay this. I want to
Mhm.
be able to pick a job and a career that I want. And so I ended up just talking about those things so often. I'm like, yeah, I need to, help people in this aspect of their journey as well.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny because I used to not think they were tied together because I would get so many people messaging me on LinkedIn. And of course, I mean, not to brag, I've had a very long career as an engineer. So then people want to talk to me about that. And I'm like, well, I just want to talk about the money stuff. But I also realize when people are not happy or satisfied in their career, it's hard to get them to focus on the money stuff because there's this part of them. And I think work, if you redefine it as just making an income and a salary, it's just part of your daily bread. It's part of what motivates you. I actually think it's healthy for humans to
Oh,
want to work, right?
absolutely. And folks need, I mean, just thinking about on the connection to finances, if you don't love your job. I was actually just talking with a career client the other day about this, where, oh, she was telling me about how she had to take and use basically all of her mental health days already. It's only been like, a few months since it rolled over for her because she hates doing the job so much. So when you go forward with that, yeah, people don't want to work at this job. So then, when we're trying to get out of debt over here, and I'm saying things like, oh, let's get some overtime, let's do that. It's like, oh, that's the worst thing on the planet, for them, because
Yeah.
they don't want to go back into that building again. And then so, it's a consequence of, you need one to get the other. We want to be financially free so we can get the job that we want. So they get into an overwhelming cycle that hopefully, with some work and encouragement and some hope, I can get them out of that cycle and focus so that we can be free.
Yeah. Well, what do you think are some of the reasons why people don't like or enjoy their work?
Oh, I mean, one of the ones I would say the top reason is just bad leadership. Sometimes it is just unreal that, like, how did these folks get into leadership? I don't. I mean, it's been story after story that I have heard from my clients. Literally, just a fun story. this one boss literally disliked this person. And of course, they all always start with "my boss hates me," right? But I will
Yeah.
tell you from this story, I think she did because she did not allow this friend of mine to go on her honeymoon. And like she wouldn't let her even a few months ahead of time to put in for vacation to go on the honeymoon. And I was asking, because I was thinking bad leadership. Well, maybe, did she not have enough people hired? Does she not have coverage for the schedule and things like that? No, she just disliked her. And so, when people run into folks who are not healthy themselves and see this leadership position as I am now on this pedestal and I am
Yeah.
controlling and you do that. And that's a big deal. And so yeah, so leadership is one of the things. And then when folks, find themselves in a situation where they see this opportunity, but it actually doesn't coincide with their vision of what they want their lives to look like. Would it be schedule like, oh yeah, I'll be fine working all night every night. You really hate it and don't want to stay up all night, and then you're just a terrible parent and a terrible husband because you're mad at everybody all night because and you're only getting to see your family 2 hours a day because you're sleeping during the day. And so that so leadership, that vision for what you want your life to be.
Yeah.
And then I would say just being in a situation where you're not doing what you're built to do. So, for example, on that, I'll use my wife for this one. She works at Ramsey Solutions, and when she started, she was an executive assistant. Now, if you know us, you know that I'm the administrative one in the relationship, and she's a creative artist.
Yeah.
And so her boss figured out really quick that this is kind of like putting a square peg, yeah, or no, yeah, square peg through a round hole, that this is not what she's built for. And
Yeah.
I think you're a creative. And she just started crying right there because that was true. And it all comes down to folks just saying, I think I can do that. I think, and then, if they're in debt and have no freedom and are kind of stuck taking care of themselves, now they're stuck in this thing that they thought that was going to be good, that they didn't really do the proper research beforehand, like maybe talk to someone that works there, talk to someone in that position and see what it's really like. And then yeah, they get themselves in trouble.
Yeah. That's really good that somebody else recognized that in her and
Hmm.
helped her shift to that, because I think a lot of people won't do that. And what do you think? Sometimes I think people don't think very deeply enough about what they really want to do. They get kind of pushed around into these jobs that maybe are a better salary or they're told they're good at. How often do you think that happens?
Well, I feel at least in my experience, and I've seen the people around me in the last 3 decades or so. There's been a lot of emphasis on my parents, my wife's parents, like everybody I run into on money. Get that
Yeah.
money. You got to get that money, and overly educating themselves. Um, and so, folks get themselves into these situations searching for those things. Like, if I get that money, darn the student loans. If I get that education and then go for that money. And then I've had many clients where, oh, yeah, I've got a degree in this, I've got a degree in that. I'm not using it. I have all these student loans that have gone nowhere because it wasn't what I was actually built for, is what my parents thought I was built for, or me hearing that of go for that money. And I just picked, like there are so many folks that try to become nurses because, oh, I heard there's a lot of money in there, or
Yeah.
try to become doctors or medical school, and they don't make it because they don't actually want to do that. And but they've just heard their entire lives, oh, make sure you get money and an education, money, education, money, education. And instead it should be, what do you like to do? What can you not help but do?
Yes.
Where you need to be pursuing at whatever it is, because at the end of the day, I believe that if you love something and you can't help but do it, just make sure that you're the best at whatever that is and you're going to get paid.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think now about this epidemic of people that, a lot of people are experiencing burnout? Like you're talking about the client that running through mental health days, people have, I need a mental health day from work and all that. Where do you think that stems from?
Yeah. I believe, that's just, that can be many variables right there. But when on the career side, being in an environment that you're not built for is tires you out. I mean, it's the same way, just a simple example is extroverts versus introverts, right? Extroverts get the energy from being around people, and introverts that energy. So it's the same concept. If you're in something that you're not built to do, it's going to zap your energy because you're not built to do this, and that's gonna burn you out. I was actually I was in a coaching call. I'm in the Ramsey Preferred Coaching program, and I was on a coaching call the other day. Um, and I was listening. It was called Real Talk with Coaches, and they were sharing the difference between being tired and being weary. So, like,
Oh, that's
being
good.
tired is good because you did something, you did some work. But being weary is that you're doing something that you're not built for it. You're not naturally leaning towards whatever that is, and so it's zap.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that because I think it's become kind of villainized to ever be tired, but it also means you're never really working very hard at anything.
Yeah,
And it's just kind of like, I think this like overreaction to maybe hustle culture and working too hard. But when you're working at something you love, it's different, right? It's totally different. I was watching these interviews with Mr. Beast, and oh my gosh, his intensity. I didn't know who Mr. Beast was. So I
I had
just
no
think
idea until that
your
Beast
sons, right?
Beast battle show, or is it
Oh,
Beast?
really? Did your sons not watch it? Okay, because my son's too old to watch it, but it's interesting. His passion for YouTube and how much he can do, and he was actually addressing he has like an autoimmune disorder, that like he gets sapped real quick, and but because he loves what he does, he's focused on YouTube since he was 11, and he's talked about he's just put in way more hours than anyone else
Yeah.
and years of people not watching his videos and not making a cent or anything. And now his YouTube audience is the size of America, of the United States. Literally, the population of the United States is.
Have you seen that new show? It's like Beast Wars or something, where it's a
No, I want to. He talked about it. I watched some of his other videos, but I was not that familiar with him. I'm just not probably his target audience. But the amount of attention and care and
yeah.
how much he
But
studied and yeah.
that goes back to tired versus weary, because when I've had a great day of work, financial coaching, it almost feels like, like I'm gonna put my feet up, like I did a good job today, versus, man, I do not want to do that again. Get me out of here. Like I want to get home. When I was in college, I was a server at Red Lobster. And yeah, a lot of those servers, especially on Mother's Day when it was nothing but large parties, it was just like, man, I gotta get out of here. I want to go home. I just wanted to, but just being tired and feeling like almost, the joy of a day of good work well done. It's a different feeling.
Right. Right, you served on a day when everyone wants to go out to eat. And they all wanna treat the moms, right?
Yeah, I can hear all my servers out there. Valentine's Day, it's coming, my friends. It rocks because it's two people. The tables turn quick, baby, and you have people trying to impress the other one so they tip better.
Oh, really? I never thought I did not last that long as a waitress.
Oh,
I did it for a tiny bit. I It was the worst timing. I became a waitress right as 9/11 happened,
yeah.
and I was so looking forward to that job. I went through the training, unpaid training. I had to buy all the specialized clothes
Oh,
because
yeah.
they made this big deal like you got to get the clothes dry cleaned. We have a very particular uniform. You
Oh, wow.
cannot wear any of the clothes, so you have to have like all these sets of clothing. Then I did it and finally, got my waitress whatever certification, and then nobody came because it was 9/11.
So here's a fun career story on how I got into Red Lobster. Um, I walked in and I saw this guy in front of me talking to the manager, and they were talking about a dishwashing job. And the manager was like, "Come back on Thursday." And so I was going to talk to the manager myself, and I was like, I'm just going to come back on Thursday. So I came back at the exact time because I was listening in, and I just showed up behind him. And the manager said, "Okay, you can be a dishwasher." And all that. And I was like, "Oh, I would like to do that too." I just said, "I would like to do that too." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And I became a dishwasher at Red Lobster. And with that, because I'm thinking back to those jobs because I worked at a movie theater, worked at Red Lobster, before I made it into a better job, and those were jobs that I remember the difference between weary and tired, and there were those weary days, but I loved it. Because I'm extroverted, so I loved being around people. I loved talking. So I was a dishwasher for maybe 6, 7 months, but they were like, David, you talk too much to be back here. We gotta get you out of the kitchen, and I became a host and a server. But that was just kind of funny. I just walked in
Yeah.
and I
Wow,
got
you took the initiative, and
yeah,
yeah, and you found
I
something
did.
you're so much better suited for. Maybe when you're with the dishwashers, they're like, they didn't understand English. They're like, this guy's just talking all the. We don't always.
Yeah, I was the only white guy back then. But they learned that we all became friends, and I became a what to call an honorary Mexican. It was awesome. My honorary last name is Gonzalez. It's awesome.
Oh, that's funny.
I'll tell you, my friends, if you're a server and you start out in the back, it's great because talk to the staff. Because when I became a server, every single day I went back there and I said hi to everybody, every single
Oh,
person.
they were all your friends, and they
All
helped you
my
out
friends. So
more.
when I messed up and I did an order wrong, all my stuff was done like that because I was nice. And
Oh,
I'll tell you, I mean, that's a good thing to talk about, for our career chat. Like, hey, everybody out there, make sure you're saying hi to everybody. Every
very
relationship in your career is important. Every connection you make is important because you never know when it's going to be important. So it's easier just to be a nice person, you know, instead of like, oh, I think that person might have influence over my career, so I'll be nice to them. No, just be nice to everybody because you never know who's going to hit the jackpot, where they're going to hit the jackpot. So just be nice. That's
yeah.
that's my PSA for our call.
That is a good message because you can't always teach niceness, right?
No.
It's not a skill everyone has. What do you think about the job market right now? Just people in these prolonged job searches. I'm sure maybe you've coached some people through that where they're in a long job search or going to go into a long job search. How do you coach some of them? Because I'm going to be honest, sometimes I think people are unrealistic about how long the job search will be, and they're unwilling to take on any other type of work while all their finances are going down to zero. you know?
Well, that's funny. That was the first thing I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if you are out of a job right now, go get something to plug the holes. Right now, the ship is going to sink.
Yes.
Right now, it doesn't matter. Get three. Because I mean, I feel like isn't that just adulting, Sandra? Isn't that just regular
I
adult?
agree, but there are a lot of people, okay, so I'll play devil's advocate. What if they're saying, like, my audience, they're like, oh, well, but I'm a six-figure type of earning engineer, and I'm not going to go work at whatever Dick's Sports or something or Red Lobster. I'm waiting for that big, my six-figure other offer that I'm going to get.
Yeah. Well, I I feel for that because yeah, I don't want to go back to work at Red Lobster right now at all. I have no desire. Uh, but but I just believe that you know, you need to have something. I mean, now of course, you can have strategy like, okay, I have this amount of money, so it's going to last me this long. So, I mean, I personally would probably like, okay, my emergency fund is 6 months, right? I have a 6 month emergency fund. I think I can just focus on job search for 3 months, and then if I see it not happening, then I need to go. You know what I mean? There's a lot of wiggle room. I think.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. You're right. There's variability. I guess I was thinking more people who have nothing saved up, but like they could have.
Yeah, if they have nothing saved up, I don't care about your issues. Go get a job.
Oh, I like that because I will tell you. So when I graduated from college, I worked at Fry's Electronics, and
Oh
yeah, yeah. So it was just like an hourly type of job, but it was
yeah,
making money.
yeah. Well, and it's one of those things that opportunities will come, but the ability to discern good opportunities versus bad opportunities is hard when you're stressed about your money situation.
It
You know,
is.
when you're
It
stressed
adds another layer.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. When you're stressed and there's holes in your thinking, you're going to make a mistake. And like we were talking about earlier, you're going to get in something where, because, as, and just so the audience knows, when you're going to interview, you're interviewing them too. You're looking for those red flags on, is it bad leadership? Is this going to be in the rules of the vision I have for my life? Like you should be looking for those things. So, when you need a job and it's like, oh, okay, 6 figures, the money's talking, right? And then, but it's actually not good for you. It's actually not a good thing. And you
Yeah.
just fully threw, like a bull in a china shop through the interview because you want this job. No, no, no. Having something, whatever it is, to keep your ship afloat while you're searching for something right, something good,
Yeah. I like
something that you're not want to get out of in 6 months with buyer's remorse and just be in the same situation again. And
Yeah.
now have this like weird 1 year time period on your resume. We're like, what
Yeah.
happened there?
Yeah. I talk about how sometimes salary is a bit like it's a bit like lust in dating, right? It can kind of blind you and you think this person's so great and fantastic. But then when that a little bit of the lust and all the feelings wear off, you're like, oh, well, this is a real person. And they're like, you don't really know them that well. Like, what did I get into?
Yeah,
So
I don't actually like them and they smell funny and
yeah. Well, what
yeah.
about
So,
okay.
I mean, side note, I went from being in management to completely switching roles with my wife. And I became the stay-at-home dad with my coaching business on the side on nap times, evenings, and weekends. That was weird. I went from having an assistant bringing me coffee to 2 little boys that I'm chasing around.
Yeah.
And so I just think when, going along with kindness, humbleness, guys,
Yeah, I
we
agree. I
be
agree. And
humble.
and you're a dad of kids and yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And also whatever you're doing, because that's what, and I would say my dad taught me this, but whatever you're doing, do that the best you can, and then we'll see what happens next. I was a dishwasher. I did not want to do that job, but I became one of the best dishwashers ever, and they loved it. And then I got promoted and I got out of there. And I became one of the best hosts ever, and I loved it. And I learned to do the best I can and give it my all. And that's how you get promoted. That's how you
Yeah,
get seen,
I
by
could
being humble and kind.
yeah, you did everything you could with joy
Yeah,
with
with joy.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
yeah.
But
Sorry.
oh, I have another question that like it crosses money and career. So let's say you have a client, because I think this happens with a lot of people. They know they don't like their job, right? So they want to leave and they think the only option is just to quit, but they don't have money set aside. So this is someone they don't have their 3 to 6 months, they don't have an emergency fund, but they're like, every day is so miserable. I cannot stand this anymore. This is hurting my mental health. Like, what about those people in those situations?
I mean, we would definitely want to talk through that situation, and try and figure out what is reality versus feelings.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Because there's a lot of, I'm feeling this way, but then working through like, so what is the specific actual thing that's happening at work? What are you bringing to it? Is there any way to work on this situation? Do we need to talk to HR? Do we need to have a sit down with the boss? Is there anything that can be done to make this better? And at the same time, let's start planning escape, baby. What can we cut out of the budget so we can get that savings up quickly, to be able to start planning
I
escape.
agree. I
Um,
think getting into it with a plan is so much better than just,
Oh, yeah,
okay.
yeah. I mean, you always watch those movies, like I'm just thinking of Elf because Christmas just happened, like where
Mhm.
he's just like, oh, I quit, right? The dad, he just quits. Like, oh, really? That sounds so scary. I hope he's okay. But yeah, you have to think through it. I mean, if I were in that situation, it would just be what I would be fighting for. If there's really nothing I could do, that I talk to my coach through, trying to be coach and figure out what to do. If there's nothing to do, then yeah, it's escape planning time. And then also, now all of my extra time goes already before this job is done to applying for new jobs. So I would be cutting my budget down to nothing, saving as much as possible, and start applying to everything until everything under the sun. Of course, hoping for something that I want. But
Mhm.
if we want out of there bad, you may have to work at Fry's.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they're out of business now.
Are they really?
Yeah, they all went away. But yeah, it's so interesting you mentioned that because people, when they're in that situation, they're so tired, they're so mentally drained. And when you bring up that stuff about the planning and you start applying, applying for other jobs is almost like another part time job. And that's another thing people don't want to do or realize. But I think it's all about kind of going into these things more strategically, right? And I can't remember if it was Dave Ramsey that was talking about it. Like, he's like, what is truly a toxic workplace? Is that like term getting misused and thrown around everywhere, right?
Yeah, there's a couple victims out there, and and the big thing, that I want everybody to remember is, one of the greatest ways to shift to a new job is through connections.
Yeah.
So getting to know someone at that job, getting to know what it's like there. So especially in an emergency situation, it's time to talk to some friends and family and people that I know and see where are they working. Are they hiring for any position? That's what I would be doing first. And then, with that connection, that's going to help you have that referral going into applying for those jobs.
Yeah, you brought up a really good point because I think a lot of people wait until they're in that very dire situation where they already quit and they're like, oh, now I need to build up my connections.
Oh,
And I'm not saying go about everything in a transactional way with people, right? But if they kind of worked on like, oh, every week I connected with different people on LinkedIn. Every month or so I was having coffee with some people in my industry or at different companies, right? And kind of always be doing that. And then it's not so transactional when they actually need to like call on some of those favors or relationships or connections, right?
well, and that goes back to the basic go and say hi. When I started my day at Red Lobster, I went to the back and I said hello to every single person working there. And and it's kindness and humbleness when when you're there for the folks in your industry. How can I help you? Oh, I'm learning this right here. You want to join me over here? What can we do to help each other grow? And
Yeah.
then they're going to be there for you, but it has to be real and authentic. People, I mean, I feel like in real life, as with sales or anything, people can tell when you're slimy and not being authentic. They can feel it.
Yes.
When you're being desperate, they can tell.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right because it just can't help but ooze out
Yeah.
when you're in that situation, right? And I even tell people the best time to get another job is when you already have a job.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a difference when you don't have a job, or you're talking. Also, another good point is when your finances are not doing well and you're doing this interviewing and reaching out. It's a different energy, right? People can sense
Yeah.
yeah.
And then just to point out, when you go in with the mindset of you're interviewing them too, they're gonna love that, everybody. They're going to see, oh, you've done research on our company, you know what's going on. Oh, you've already connected with some people in this position to learn more about it. Like, these are all great things that are going to make you look good. Instead of, I mean, I used to work for a library as well. I was a librarian. Did you know that, Sandra?
I
Uh,
did, I did.
so people would come in, when we were doing interviews for positions, and it's just, I have this paper. Can you please hire me? I really need this job. Like, literally, some
Oh, really?
say that. And then you would ask them, and it was funny though. We would always joke when we're interviewing people because the main thing people would say is, "Yeah, I love to read." When who knows if anybody ever actually reads when you're running a library. You're doing all sorts of other things, and but they didn't do research. They haven't connected. They have no idea what the position is.
Oh, so they came in there and thought that was a good enough, like, lead in, like, "I like
That's a
books."
great answer. I love books and I love to read. Well, that there's nothing about that in the description of the job of the job post.
Oh, interesting. I never thought about that because I thought, like, maybe one of my when I if I ever early retire, I'd love to work at a library. That's what I think I would say. I'd be like, "I like to read a lot."
Don't do it, Sandra. Don't do it.
At least a little bit.
I care about people. I care about helping them get the book that they want, and finding it for them. I mean, those things. Those caring for people and being a servant. That's what you want to lean into. So when you go and apply, let me know. I'll help you out.
I had to go do my research on the library too. It's just interesting. I never thought of, oh, but you're probably right. I bet everyone walks into there thinking like, oh, it's so easy to get a job. I just, I like books. I like reading. That's the
It's
criteria.
I mean, at least the library I worked in, they expected a lot, and it was great. And it, like truly, and this was a few years ago, but truly gone is just a bunch of old ladies at the library. That's not the picture anymore. And a lot of people still have that in their head.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, like they just think it's just like volunteers and
Yeah, we're
people.
just hanging out, looking at books. They're all dusty. Nobody's checking them out. I
Oh,
mean, and the library I worked at, it was San Bernardino County Library in California, and we would have huge events, that would have thousands of people come to the library and fun things like that, new book festivals and things. It was a privilege. It was a lot of fun working
yeah, if you think about it, it's such an integral part of the community that people, I mean, I think a lot of people have forgotten about libraries and they're very underutilized,
there. They are.
but it's that balance of like they don't really make a profit, but they need people to come to their stuff, right? I mean, they can't
I
just
mean, it's one of those things that it's all really taken care of in general. Yeah, it's not a profit institution,
yeah.
but yeah, but I don't even know. Do you know that you can check out audiobooks and ebooks?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yes, I do.
there you go. Isn't that something?
I don't use the library as much as I should.
In my community, I'm on the board of trustees for the library too. So I still love libraries, even though I'm a coach.
Yeah, I have that instant gratification when I want that book within 60 seconds.
Oh, nice.
You don't want to wait 8 weeks to get the book.
But the point of that is, when you're going to apply anywhere, do some research. Learn about them, learn about who's in charge. If you can find out information on your interviewers, find information on them, and
Ooh,
they
that's
will
a good
be
tip.
absolutely impressed and see that you care. And that's I think that's one of the things in short supply: caring, followed by humbleness and kindness. So yeah, three things today: caring, humbleness, and kindness. Remember those three things.
Yeah, you can't manufacture caring. I also tend to think you can't really manufacture motivation either. You can't really. I mean, companies try through salary and bonuses and the little rewards and all that. But when people just aren't motivated to do work or do that type of work they're applying for, it's hard.
Yeah. Well, that's why, us as coaches, that's why we have to focus on figuring out what are your reasons why for doing
Yeah.
anything. I mean, any sort of behavior change or any job that you want to excel at, you need to care and want to do it and have like basically doing it on purpose. I'm going to go in this job and I want to learn this, this, and this because I want to be here one day, wherever that is. And it was actually interesting. I was hearing from a great coach, Tim Mann, actually today, and he was talking about that goals are good. You have those SMART goals and things, but also the mindset of instead of particular specific goals, also think about who do you want to be. So in whatever
Mm.
job or whatever career move you want to make, start thinking in terms of I want to be the kind of guy who is a what's it called? They always call the CEOs the corner office kind of guy, or what's the name of that, Sandra?
Is it commander? Is it like the D's and the disc or
No, ooh, C level or suite
oh,
level,
C-suite. Okay.
C-suite
Okay.
people.
Yeah.
And then so if you say instead of I want to do really well at this job or I want to make this much money, or like I want to be a C-suite person. Okay, so then what's kind of cool is that'll show you the goals. What needs to be true in my life, in my personal life? How many books am I
Yeah.
reading? What training am I doing? What education am I doing? Because I want to be this kind of person. And then of course, if you start acting like that kind of person, eventually you'll find yourself being that kind of person.
Oh,
That's with
interesting.
anything we want to do with our finances, with physical strength training, any behavior change that we want to do. What kind of a person do I want to be? I want to be, like for example, I want to be a good husband and a good father. Okay, what does that mean? What needs to be true for those things, and that's in our careers as well.
Oh, that's a really, really good message. I missed that today.
Oh yeah.
Well, I was working, but yeah, I don't get to join a lot of those during the day type of sessions. I wish I could join more
Yeah,
of them.
no worries. Well, good. I'm here to send them all to you.
Yeah. Well, as we're ending, I want to give you a chance to tell people what you're working on, where they can possibly find you, all that good information.
Yeah, absolutely. What I am super excited about right now that I started this year is an employee wellness financial benefit
Mm,
for companies. I definitely am focusing on small businesses because, especially as small business owners, you really feel it when your staff comes in and, oh, my car's broken down again and I'm really stressed out. And then, oh, or they can't come to work. And then you're putting all of the emphasis on your managers to step up and then they're doing all the work. And then you can see how it, turns in. So I've started this new employee wellness benefit program, and I'm excited, to share with companies because I think, staff needs a lot of help, and that's going to end up in better ROI for especially those small businesses who, we've got 4 employees. We need them to be here, ready to go,
mm.
not stressed, and ready to be leaders in their industry. And then, yeah, financial and career coaching, always working on that. You can find me. Just search Coach David. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and then my website, and just search Coach David.
Yeah. Oh, and LinkedIn too.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, and LinkedIn. I'm everywhere. Unalignable.
Oh, you're unalignable too.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. This is such a good conversation.
yeah. As always, thank you so much for having me again.
Hold on, let me just make sure it ends. There we go. Okay, it's over. It's
That
just
was
us
so
talking.
good, Sandra.
Yeah, I really liked it. I